and good morning, all the panelists, and welcome to all the people who have logged in on this webinar. I'm really privileged to be actually engaging this conversation with the fellow panelists who are very successful in domains that they have been and achieved what they have. And I so believe in the next 1 hour or maybe an hour, 15 minutes, we'll have some very interesting stories, we'll have some very interesting conversations and insights, hopefully, that the people who are logged in could take into their context of business or life and really take some leaf out of it from solution perspective. Just to set the context of this conversation, we basically, and I'm sure COVID has been around now for 5 months. It seems as if it's been around for much longer than 5 months. We all have been locked up at home. Work from home was earlier seemingly very nice, and people used to talk about work-life balance. I guess it's now moving to home-work balance because people have very blurred lines between what's work, what's home. I remember in the first about 2 weeks of work from home, people were wearing jackets or whatever they were used to wearing, shaven, and video on. Come third or the fourth week, the jacket kind of moved away to t-shirt. Video was on for some, off for some. Come the second month, at least I can say about myself and the company I belong to, video off. I'm sure shirts became t-shirts, trousers became shorts, or whatever the case may be, and it was fun. And I also remember in the first maybe month or two, you will find kids, young kids, kind of crying or playing, and somebody will come into the video peeping in as to what's happening, what's my dad or mom doing, and people say, no, pitch it up, just no, I'm talking to my boss. And I think 4 months later, it's fine, right? It's fine. It's fine to see kids moving around. It's fine to see things happening behind you. I've seen mothers cooking in the kitchen and talking. I've seen people doing all kinds of stuff. I think it's been terrific. And I hope the same could have been said about economy. I hope the same could be said about businesses. And in financial services that I belong to, it's often said, and I heard this phrase from a very good friend of mine, that growth happens when people buy stuff they don't need with money they don't have, right? Now, unfortunately, the growth is not happening because people don't seem to be buying stuff they don't need. And we all have realized, locked up in our homes, that we don't need to buy so much of stuff that we were buying pre-COVID. We can live life very simple. We can live life without too much of adventurous spending. And hence, we don't need to borrow money, right? And that's a big problem for people like us who only survive by lending money to people to buy stuff. And hence, growth is not happening. But I think the bigger picture that I will dwell upon with fellow panelists very quickly is to really get into 2 or 3 fundamental points of what's happening around us, right? A, what do the panelists believe could be the defining moment of this pandemic, this event, right? This event is nothing which has happened before, right? People talk about 2008, right? I was in the thick of thing in 2008. I don't think this is anywhere close to 2008. It was very financial services specific, but we'll talk a lot about it. B, how are companies pivoting? What are we seeing around us? Where's the disruption happening? Are people really pivoting? Will people really pivot? And C, what could be the changing consumer behavior? And I think that's the pertinent question that I don't think people have got a handle on. People are talking about 8% digital natives becoming 20% digital natives. People are talking about my 80-year-old grandmom or anybody else in my family started to use Facebook or doing digital payments. Is this permanent? Is this temporary? If tomorrow life was normal completely, would this come back to what it was pre-COVID? Or is this change for better? And I think at that note, I would like to quickly start my conversation with fellow panelists by posing the first question to Milan, right? And I think Milan is deeply associated with financial services, right? He's looking at, I hope not, very deeply into financial statements of fellow customers. And I hope the data protection kind of puts some level of data protection securities in data. But, Milan, what do you think? What are you seeing, right? Not only in your business, and I would love to see what you think about your business. But tell us, what are you seeing generally in consumer behavior trends pre-COVID and now? And has it changed from April? Has it changed a lot more from June into July? What are you seeing?
Sure, Bhavesh. So, Bhavesh, before I sort of get into specifics in terms of, just in terms of what are we seeing from a data standpoint. So we are, of course, in the space of transaction behavior intelligence. And what we see is anonymized data, which comes in from the banks, and we sort of add more intelligence to it. And of course, from a data protection perspective, GDPR, don't worry, we're all compliant because it's anonymized. But having said that, I think, just wanted to share some insights or thoughts about, where we are right now in this crisis. And I think it's a great topic to really sort of talk about, right? So first and foremost, at a very personal level, I think when people keep talking about unprecedented times, this is all doom and gloom, et cetera, et cetera. I think personally speaking, and I've seen a lot of people sort of, more or less adopt some of these philosophies, is the fact that while all of that's happening, I think never have any one of us got an opportunity to spend enough and more quality time with our family and loved ones, right?
Okay.
Spending a lot more of that. I think all of us are fortunate enough to have 3 square meals in our and make sure that we are providing for our family as well. I think there's a lot of things which are green shoots of this current crisis, which is giving us again, I think it's also the spirit of human spirit of resilience, right? How do we sort of bounce back?
Yeah.
Irrespective of what crisis hits us. And that's incredible to see prevalent as well, right? So I want to start with a couple of quotes, and I think which is of course related to our current topic. One is from John Maxwell, and what it says is that growth is the only guarantee that tomorrow will get better. So clearly, I think we will need to start doing things very, very differently. I mean, there is a disruption that's hit us, a bolt out of the blue, but we need to sort of keep moving for it. There's another quote that's come from Gary Hamel, which says that the world is becoming turbulent faster and companies are becoming resilient slower. So effectively, we need to move faster with the times, and all of that's going to, sort of clearly be very important. And we've seen enough and more sort of, WhatsApp posts about, the current crisis impact and how companies need to pivot really fast. And one of the ones which has been very, very popular on social media has been the bridge on the river Choluteca.
Yeah.
Right, on Honduras.
Yeah.
We've seen various sort of, things coming about that you might think, you might plan, and I think people mentioned that as well, that you might plan for the best, but things will change and things will come and impact your business, but how are you pivoting and changing some of that as well? From our perspective, I think, Bhavesh, specific to the question that you asked, we are seeing that clearly from a consumer behavior sentiments perspective, starting Jan, Feb onwards, is when, transactions drop dramatically. And you're seeing this closer than we are as well in your business, is that increasingly people's spends on discretionary expenses have significantly reduced. So you see on our credit card, debit card overall basis, most of these largest issuing banks that we have in the country, spends on cards reduced as much as 70-80%. So it was a big jolt for some of these companies. But the good news is that, again, to the spirit of resilience of Indians especially as well, right, and the world at large, is as things are opening up, sentiments have started to slightly bounce back. Now, the question is up in the air that, is this more sort of belted up demand that sort of happened from March till April, May, which is now sort of resulting into some upsurge in transactions? Or is it that, this is going to sustain for a while, that people have more or less said, we have reconciled, this is a reality now. BCG talks about an article I read about which says this is the new now. And you have to kind of reconcile to that new now, right? And things have started sort of emerging back, and transactions have moved up to 70-80% of what it used to be earlier. So things are getting better. But interesting insights to see that, there are specific categories. So if you talk about the top, say, 100 or 500 merchants in the country, and you see the transaction last year versus this year, you really realize that, things have changed. I mean, the merchants that used to be earlier prevalent in the top 500 have actually moved in now. So there are new categories like edutech, health tech, new categories coming in completely. So there has been a shift in demand. There is clearly some results of transactions coming through. I think it's all for the better. And it's more about the fact that, you mentioned about, revenge travel, Bhavesh. And it's interesting to see that, while travel is a category which has been disrupted one of the most, despite that, you see, for example, drive holidays becoming more and more prevalent. So you may not do the international long haul trips, but you'll do things within the vicinity. So I think green shoots are emerging. This is only a matter of time, and time is healer. This too shall pass.
Terrific, Milan. No, thank you very much.